I'll start off with our emergency evacuation procedures before I call us to order. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm may sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you've reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles. With that out of the way, I'll call us to order. You have minutes from last month's meeting was in your packet. Any additions, corrections, omissions from the minutes? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We have a public hearing and possible action to amend the subdivision regulations, section 7.01.7 sidewalks. It's a public hearing. Is there anyone here that would wish or wishes to speak to the subject of changing the subdivision regulations as they relate to sidewalks? If there's no one to speak, the public hearing is closed, and it is up to the Planning Commission to act on the regulations change. The change in the regulations was covered in prior meetings. You have the new wording of the subject of sidewalks, replacing the old section 7.01.7 with a considerably longer description of sidewalks. This comes to us with, in concert with work by the Highway Department. Are there any questions or further discussion on the amendment to the subdivision regulations? We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. We have a second. Is there any questions or discussion? If not, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of amending the sidewalk specifications in the subdivision regulations. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. The subdivision regulations will be modified. It does not take any further action by the Planning Commission, since the subdivision regulations are under the purview of the Planning Commission. You got a question, Ron? No, it doesn't. Subdivision regulations are the they're our responsibility.
Spelling can be corrected without our, they can do that without us.
Yeah. You want to give Marlene what the correction is?
On page 2, the Planning Commission, I think that should be May, about the 7th line down. May
Instead of my.
And I think survey on the 3rd page.
What was it, Clifford?
On the 3rd page, Highway Superintendent, let me see, the recommends of the Highway Superintendent a survey may be accepted.
Surety. That's what
Is that it? Okay, that wasn't survey?
no, surety.
Good deal.
So that's right. So it's just. Those corrections will be made in the final addition to the subdivision regulations. All right, we have a site plan review for 11,525 square foot warehouse showroom building for Maryville Top Shot, 110 Garrett Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this proposal is at the current site of the Maryville Top Shop. It is currently developed with an existing commercial structure. The structure that's there now is used for a mixture of things, including retail sales, warehousing, and light fabrication. The business, the top is countertop sort of thing, so you have, marble and granite tops and those types of the fabrication of those, cutting them, polishing them, etc. There are actually 2 tracts of land there. The current building is on one. The total of the 2 tracts is approximately 2.37 acres, and it's in between Garrett Drive, which is a private road, and Lamar Alexander Parkway. The other building would be used primarily for covered storage of materials. Currently, a lot of the large pieces of raw material are kind of left out in the open, and it is the applicant's opinion that this would, could serve as a display area, but it also would increase its efficiency and provide a safer and more comfortable environment for customers and employees by putting it inside and quote, out of the mud. I believe it's the discussion that we had. That said, one of the proposed conditions of approval, should the commission decide to approve, would be finalizing a lot line adjustment or merger of those 2 lots, and that is part of the concept here. Currently, that is in the hopper in Maryville, and I think there's a couple of outstanding things, but that would be an administrative approval on that. So that is under works. Just to quickly go through a couple of the different things, it is in the commercial zoning district where this type of use would be allowed. Staff has reviewed it for compliance with all the required design and aesthetic concerns. Staff has found that it does meet those standards, especially when you look at the facades, the elevation, different treatments on the elevations, including the materials, different colors, use of landscaping materials. The applicant has provided a landscape plan. We have details on the lighting, although a photometric plan will be required prior to the issuance of any building permits. Based on the specs provided, it looks like we should be fine as far as meeting the light ordinance requirements. Environmental Health has reviewed the project. Through this new phase of the development, a new septic system for the entirety of the site will be installed on what would have been the second track, but that portion, Environmental Health has reviewed it, and they found that there's adequate area available to install the system and have reserve area and all that stuff. So with that said, the staff does ultimately recommend approval. As I mentioned before, subject to the approval of a final plat for the lot combination by the city and the issuance of all applicable permits from us, the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Motion to approve would be in order.
Motion to approve staff recommendations.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Site plan is approved. I skipped over an item on the agenda. I'll go back and, oh, no, I did, yes, I did. Public input on items on the agenda. Anyone wish to speak to them? There being none, we'll move on to hearings. Preliminary plats, major subdivisions, Bob Heron subdivision off of Murphy Road by Bob Heron, 9 lots. Doug?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, there are 9 lots. 4 of the lots have county road frontage, and I'm including the 2 with the flag stems. And there are 5 served exclusively off of 2 common driveway easements. I'd just like to mention that lots 8 and 9 will actually use those common driveways as well and will not have individual access off of the county road. Before I go to the outstanding items to be completed on page 5, I would like to mention just read this to you, that the subdivision regulations allow for major subdivisions of 5 lots or more when the county road is 18 feet wide. In this particular case, the road measures between 17 feet and 17 feet 2 inches from this location north to Old Niles Ferry Road. It's not a very long distance. And so the developer has 3 options, which are on the bottom of page 2. I'm going to read those. Number 1, the developer can get 3 lots only and a remainder per 12 months. And we've done this on a fairly regular basis. Number 2, the developer can participate in the cost and construction of widening the road to 18 feet wide with shoulders and ditches as much as practical. You know, sometimes it's hard to get as much shoulder as you need. But that's the second option. And the third is the highway superintendent can make a recommendation that the road as it is acceptable or satisfactory, and or can propose an alternative modification. And so I just want you to know what those 3 options are. If we have to discuss them, we will. We did this recently on Clover Hill Ridge Road, where the developer participated with the county. That was the option he chose, to participate with the highway department. The highway superintendent came to you and told you what him and the developer and the county attorney came up with, and they proceeded to not do the 3 lots a year, but to actually make the widening. So I just want you to have that in your head. So I'm going to read the outstanding items to be completed. Number 1 is the determination of the course of action for county roadway width and a report from the highway department. I can tell you right now that the meeting between the superintendent and Mr. Herron has not occurred, but I don't know that that should stop us from approving the preliminary plat. I think that, you know, having a conversation with Mr. Herron, he's willing to do one or the other. He will either participate with the county and make the road 18 feet wide, according to him, if it meets with, you know, his development plan, or he'll fall back to 3 lots a year. He's okay with either one. And the superintendent's here to address, you know, he can speak to that as well if you'd like him to. I don't think his microphone's on, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I got it now. Thank you, Mr. We haven't met, as Mr. Hancock had said, so it is substandard. You know, it needs to be the 18 foot. We need to pick up some shoulder if we can. But he has given me a call, and we'll sit down and discuss. You know, typically we don't want to get into a whole lot of work if it's some shoulder work or ditch work and working within the right of way. I feel like that's better for us as a highway department to do that. But given this situation here, I wouldn't be opposed of approving it, subject to us meeting and seeing who's going to fix what, and make sure that it's not absorbed on the taxpayer's dime.
Doug, do you have anything further?
I would just like to add that, once again, he's prepared for the fallback position of 3 lots a year if he can't make an agreement with the county. I want to read the other outstanding items to be completed, beginning with number 2. A pre-construction meeting prior to any on-site work will be required. All instructions in the staff analysis for the construction of the common driveway, paving of the entrance, construction of all utilities, drainage improvements, and stabilization of the site. There will be site distance clearing along Murphy Road that's necessary now, and ditch work, which will be the responsibility of Mr. Herron, and he will have to coordinate that with the highway department. Number 3, a site distance easement shall be placed along the front of the property and shown on the final plat. And number 4, the developer is supposed to supply a copy of a Property Owners Association document to staff for review, and that'll be inclusive of the maintenance of the common driveways, the site distance easement, and the detention facilities. Okay. And those are all standard items.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All right, everyone understand that the fallback position is only 3. If we can work out something that is agreeable to the highway department, then the plat could proceed as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve, subject to the superintendent and the developer coming up with a solution,
In addition to the
in
outstanding.
addition to the outstanding items.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. We have a second. Any further discussion? Thank you, Superintendent, for being here and giving us your input. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Site plan is approved, subject to staff recommendations and working with the Highway Department. Final plats, Lot 4, Avery Meadows subdivision off of Morganton Road by Charlene Tiefateller.
Yes, sir. This is item C1. If you want to flip to it, it's essentially one lot. The Planning Commission approved the preliminary plat for a 14-lot subdivision at the February meeting. So that was last month. The owner is requesting that Lot 3, which is to the left of this, and Lot 4 be approved. As staff, I can approve or a one-lot subdivision, which is Lot 3, administratively. And in order to get Lot 4, it has to come before the Planning Commission, or she has to wait 90 days between plats. But this would be basically like a phased development of this 14-lot subdivision. Instead of getting 6 or 8 lots, she's simply asking for one. It's not that unusual, and it's definitely allowable by our regulations. So, you know, we're recommending that she get this lot, subject to the 2 outstanding items to be completed on page 6. And I'm going to read those into the record. Number 1 is signature plats, including the electric utility, water utility, environmental health department, and other required certifications. And a site distance easement is to be shown on the plat, and there's a $40 per lot platting fee. And that dark shaded area along the road is actually the site distance easement. Number 2 is to supply a copy of the Property Owners Association documentation, inclusive of maintenance responsibility for the drainage facilities, common driveways, and site distance easement, and to be signed by the owner and notarized. And the reason we're requiring that is because, like I said, this is, even though it's one lot, it's a part of a phased development, so it has to be inclusive of the entire subdivision. And those documents have been prepared, but we don't have the actual signed versions yet.
Any questions or comments?
Move the approval subject to the conditions.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Preliminary and final plats. Lowell Woods subdivision off of Ogalla Drive, 5 lots, 3 lots along the county road and 2 served by an existing common driveway easement.
Yes, sir. You may recall that Mr. Woods recently paved Ogalla Drive and dedicated it to the county through a pretty long process. And this was one of the things he intended to do once he got it complete and had that as a county road, was to divide his property at the end of the road. As you see, there's 5 existing homes, and they're currently all on one piece of property. All he's trying to do here is simply divide them, and it meets all of our requirements, and it's on a public road. Part of it's on an easement. The only thing that we are actually lacking is for the owner to supply us with a copy of a maintenance agreement for the 3 lots that are, lots 1, 2, and 3 are actually served by that easement. So it's a pretty simple document. He can prepare it himself or have an attorney prepare it. And it's basically a 1 or 2 page document. It's just for the maintenance of that existing, and that driveway is existing, but they're creating an easement to contain the driveway. The easement's actual legal, sorry, it's actually the legal thing put on the plat. The driveway is actually the physical thing on the ground. So that's all it's going to be for, and that's really the only thing we're lacking other than signature plats and a $20 per lot platting fee. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions? We have a motion and a second. If there's no further questions, comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. The plat is approved, subject to staff recommendations. And preliminary final plats, minor subdivisions, Pleasant Hill View subdivision off of Pleasant Hill Road and Old White's Mill, 4 lots with county road frontage. Doug?
Okay. Yeah, this is item E1, if you want to flip to it. This is actually a preliminary final plat. Since it's not a major subdivision since it's only 4 lots. It was 5 lots, but because of soil considerations and a large drainage swale down the middle, they actually opted to make the lots a little bigger, which helped. So the outstanding items to be completed are on page number 8. I put this note in there. The lot owners shall contact the highway department prior to any construction for new driveway entrances. And that's kind of important. There's lot number 3 and lot number 4 actually have driveway restrictions that the surveyor went ahead and put on there for us in advance of us looking at it, which I appreciate. And I just want to make that note, and we can even put it on the plat if we need to, but, this is at an intersection, so we just want to be careful where the driveways go. Number 2, signature plats and a $20 per lot platting fee. And that's all I have.
Any questions, comments? Doug, I got one. Lot 3 says at the Pleasant Hill side of the lot, says restricted driveway access. There is a driveway access there, or is that saying?
That's what I was referring to. That's where the driveway will have to go.
They'll have to go there?
Yes.
Okay. Otherwise, the the driveway entrances would be at the end opposite Pleasant View? Is the shaded area down there intended, the shaded area between lots 1, 2, 3, and lot 4? That, or is that
That's-
just an easement?
That's a drainage easement.
Okay, that's just drainage easement.
Yeah, and
Okay.
you'll see lot 4 has a access easement on it in the middle of the lot, along Old White's Mill,
Okay.
and that's for access.
All right, so lots 1 and 2, they have freedom as to where the driveway goes.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the exact final plat. I mean, technically, we don't want it right in the curb, in that radius of the curb on lot 1, but that's not technically where they build them. We can put a restriction on there not to put a driveway there if you want, but
No,
it's usually
I'm
not a
just,
problem.
that's more curiosity on my part.
Yeah, I understand.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
That's gonna be my variance on exactly what this is. If you're coming off of Wilkes on Pleasant Hill, it's probably on the left of the property.
It'll be on the right. You go almost to the end of Pleasant Hill, and it'll be on the right at the last, Old White's Mills, I think the last,
Oh, I still turn to the right.
Old White's Mill's almost a 4-way. You can see it's kind of a dog-leg 4-way. If I'm saying this right, I think Superintendent Hedrick probably knows this better than I do, but I think Old White's Mill is the last main road on Pleasant Hill before you get to White's Mill. Is that right? Okay. It's on the right side. Jeff, what's the name of that? Waters Equipment is one property beyond this, on the right.
Just after it on
Is it joint?
No, there's one property between them.
Okay, it's on the same side of the road as Mark.
Yes.
Okay, so it's, if you're coming from Wilkes Pike, it's on the left.
No, it's on the right.
You turn off Wilkes, you come out Pleasant Hill.
Okay, if you come off of,
White's Mill, it's off on the left. You following?
you come off Tuck Leach, Tuck Leach on the left. You come off Tuck Leach, it's on the left. You come by Waters, and then it's right there on the left. Okay, I'm with you.
There's a tiny little site map.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, no problem.
Move it for
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, subject to staff recommendations, correct? Yes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Don't have any miscellaneous items. You got anything? No staff reports. Public input on items not on the agenda. There being none, the meeting is adjourned.